Is your weight training ruining your flexibility? Or if you're doing yoga and weight training, should the yoga come before or after the weights? Or on a completely different day entirely? And how best can you schedule these two hobbies into your lifestyle in order to get the best out of both of them? These are the dilemmas that I went through myself many years ago. So in this video, I wanted to share with you my secret little system, which enabled me to stay consistent and progressing with both my yoga practice and weight training. I managed to improve my strength and lift heavier weights, nail new postures and skills in my yoga practice, and improve my flexibility all at the same time. Because yoga and weightlifting really are a match made in heaven. Yoga gives us the ability to move through a larger range of motion, to improve our balance, increase our mind to muscle connection, and ultimately to reduce our risk of getting injured as well. It does help us build strength endurance, which is the ability for a muscle to hold a load over an extended period of time, but it lacks the ability to build strength intensity or strength power. We only have our body weight to push or to hold, so there's a lack of ability to progressively overload, which is a crucial component to strength gain. On top of that, with just you and the mat, there's pretty much zero resistance for our pulling muscles on the back of the body. And so the two disciplines together have a beautiful synchronicity. So if you don't need any more convincing to bring both of these hobbies into your life, let's dive into solving the first of the big dilemmas, which, according to the messages I receive very frequently, is perhaps the biggest of concerns for most people. Weight training is ruining my flexibility. So straight out of the starting blocks here, let me assure you, it absolutely does not have to. Building strength and gaining flexibility are absolutely not opposites, and so one does not need to be sacrificed for the benefit of the other. But this is a very real experience for many people, so let's jump into why that might be, but more importantly, how to avoid it. So when we lift weights, on a very simplified level, what we're doing is causing micro damage to the muscle, which then as we rest and it repairs, comes back stronger or bigger, or maybe even both. As the muscle repairs itself, it's very common to experience DOMS, which stands for Delayed Onset Muscle Soreness. DOMS is the thing that makes you walk a little bit funny the day after leg day. Now, this part is super important, so listen up. DOMS is not the same as lost flexibility. Because let's say before your leg day, you could stretch this far, but the day after leg day, you can now only go this far because your legs are so stiff and sore and achy. Do not panic. This isn't a marker of your new flexibility level. You just have a heightened sensitivity to the sensations of a stretch whilst you have DOMS. And once those aches have died down in a day or two, regular range of motion will return. But if we set DOMS aside as a short-term effect with no lasting influence on your flexibility, what about the very real fact that people do experience loss of flexibility when they take up weight training? So this is where we get to the actual solution, because it doesn't have to be this way. If you don't want to sacrifice your flexibility when you lift weights, you simply have to make smart choices in the gym. Smart choice number one, you have to use your full range of motion available to you throughout the lift. Using your full range of motion means that you'll feel a stretch in the target muscle in the bottom position of the movement. So for example, RDLs, that means hinging forwards all the way until you feel your hamstrings and glutes stretching. In a chest fly, that means broadening your wings until you feel that stretch right across your chest. In a pull down, that means allowing your arms to fully extend above you to stretch the lats. And smart choice number two is to therefore be selective about what exercises that you choose to train, or perhaps how you choose to train them. Choosing an overhead tricep extension stretches your triceps in this position, so uses a full range of motion, whereas training your triceps with a kickback like this does not. Choosing a floor press to train chest has many benefits, but range of motion isn't one of them. So taking it to a bench to allow your elbows to lower further and find a stretch across the chest is a smarter choice for these goals. If you're taking a reverse lunge, depending on your current flexibility, you may need to use a deficit in order to stretch the glutes in that bottom position. I'm putting some more of these examples in my next Mobility Mail newsletter, so you can sign up for that via the link in the description if you are interested. So with these smart choices, we can eliminate the worry of weight training ruining our flexibility, which, let's face it, is a common reason people choose to practice yoga. But there are a ton of other reasons people practice yoga too. Mindfulness, spirituality, or simply enjoyment, to name a few. So if you're going to practice yoga and weight train as well, how best can you schedule these into your training plan for best results? Well, before I reveal my secret little formula to you, first things first, practicing yoga before your weight session is the only thing I would advise that you not do. Not only does yoga have a lot of passive stretching, which is shown to reduce your strength and power output that you're going to call upon in your weight session, but it's also going to fatigue your muscles and make your strength training less effective. If you're choosing to practice yoga and weight train in the same session, weights first, yoga second, always. And just for one more moment, let's stick with this idea of keeping your yoga practice and weight training independent from each other. There are many ways that you could choose to schedule your time here. Here's a look at some of the example schedules that I share in my Yogis Who Lift program, which you can find in the description if you'd like to learn more about this entire topic. Example 1 is the most simple. Perhaps you like to do yoga once a week, so that's not too tricky to schedule in. Example 2 is more of a 50-50 split. My advice would be to then tailor the type of yoga that you're doing for each of your yoga sessions. The day after leg day, you're really not going to want to be doing long warrior holds, 3 minutes of chair pose, or a strong middle splits class. I would perhaps select a upper body focus class or a core focus class. Ultimately, a lot of this kind of scheduling comes down to how your body is feeling and your personal preferences. There's no right or wrong, but I have a better solution, or at least a solution that worked better for me. And maybe you've already guessed it, but that solution is to combine yoga into my workouts. I say yoga like this intentionally, as really what my secret formula is to work on yoga-related skills in my workout, just the postures part, and leave the experience of the other elements of the practice to the days where yoga is the only thing on my schedule. Let me explain. A split is the name given to how you divide your training sessions into different body parts. And a very popular split example is push, pull, and legs, where in one session you work your push muscles such as the chest, triceps, and shoulders. In the next session, you work on your pull muscles, namely the back and bicep. And in the final session, you work on your legs. And depending on how many times you wish to exercise each week would depend on how many times you did each session. For example, you could do push, pull, legs, push, pull, legs if you train 6 days a week, or any variations such as push, legs, pull, legs for 4 training sessions a week. So my secret little formula is to use this kind of split for the types of skills and ways we challenge the body in yoga. For example, pull and back bends. And there's a very intentional rationale behind how I divide up the split, so listen up. So again, here are some pages from my Yogis Who Lift program, where you'll see that with the pull workout, you follow up your session with inversion practice, especially handstands, and leveraged back bends, which are back bends where we use our limbs to gain leverage and enter them, such as wheel pose or wild thing. Why? Well, a pull workout is going to really activate our grip strength and have us very tuned in to our external rotators of the shoulder, which are 2 crucial elements in successful handstands. So it makes sense to follow up this workout with this skill training. A pull workout has also really engaged our back muscles. They are primed and ready for contracting, an essential part of a stable and supportive back bend in postures such as wheel pose, wild thing, and cobra. And also not to mention the fact that our wrists are also well primed from all this pull work, which these postures take a lot of too. And then conversely, after a push workout, our shoulders and triceps are likely going to feel toasted. So working on your inversions here doesn't really make much sense, right? You've got nothing left to give. So the split for a push workout is push and unleveraged back bends. Core strength, and thoracic mobility. Unleveraged back bends are ones where we have no help from the limbs to enter, essentially the ones that everyone finds hardest. Things like locust pose. You could work on core drills or focus on your thoracic mobility. How is flipping the grip going for you? And then lastly, you have legs. If you've been training smart, using those tools I mentioned previously, using that full range of motion, post-leg workout is the perfect time for working on your flexibility for things such as front or middle split. Remember, you don't actually need to be able to do the full expression and sit to the floor in order to work on that range of motion. Perhaps you work through a selection of poses that get into your hamstrings, hip flexors, and inner thighs. The leg split is also twinned with arm balances. A lot of arm balancing is essentially a display of some kind of hip mobility balanced on top of your arms. So your push strength should be pretty fresh and rested from your push workouts, and those hips have been suppled up to help you find as much success as possible. Me personally, I would then take a yoga class on my rest days. It might be something pretty gentle, where my mind was my main focus, as opposed to my muscles. Ultimately, this is a formula which worked for me as I enjoyed it. And that's the most crucial part to being consistent with anything. Care less about being the most effective and prioritize finding what feels most enjoyable. And if you're thinking of implementing this kind of method into your own training, or if you're someone that simply enjoys practicing yoga in its own right, you're going to go and want to check out this video next to learn the 3 biggest yoga mistakes that you'll want to avoid.